created by making comments about his former quarterback in Peyton Manning. Irsay, in short, came off ungrateful for what Manning did for the franchise. Manning, the ultimate professional, avoided answering any questions about Irsay.
Did Irsay have a fair point saying, despite all your regular season success, it was frustrating to not win more than one Super Bowl in time?
I don't have any answer for you on that or any comment on any of that.
Yeah, I have a real problem with that. I think he ought to shut his mouth personally. I think the guy just he wants to be famous, so he gets his one little shot to somebody to know who his name is. So to me, it's classless, and it really, really bothers me. And I've probably said enough already. So, but I hope Peyton goes back and steps on the throat.
Former Colts coach Tony Dungy simply says that Irsay made this personal, while our very own Bill Polian, who was the GM for the Colts, said that Irsay seems like he doesn't really understand how hard it is to get from training camp to the Super Bowl. So we asked this question about Peyton Manning responding. What impact will recent circumstances have on the game on Sunday, Skip?
It's a very good question, Kerry. Stephen A. Smith, I say Peyton Manning will play with a vengeance on Sunday night back in the house that he built, Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. I say Peyton Manning will play with a controlled fury, and I say his Broncos teammates, especially those on offense, will feed off his intensified focus. So I'm going to say Peyton puts up 40 on Sunday night. I'm going to say that his Broncos win by at least 14 points, and he takes it out on his former owner. But I want to be clear about this. Peyton all week, every time he's been asked about this, has taken the high road. He will not stoop. He's got too much class to stoop to responding to the comments made by his ex-owner. Now, we also hear today from the NFL Network that Jim Irsay has even gone so far as to call Peyton Manning to try to clarify his comments, and that Peyton has not returned that call. He won't, and he should not, because let's also be very clear about this, Stephen A. Smith. No matter how Jim tries to spin it or backtrack on it or clarify it, he dumped Peyton Manning for Andrew Luck. And no matter how he tries to spin this week, he did take a big shot at Peyton's postseason failures. An accurate shot, albeit, but a disrespectful, maybe ungrateful shot nonetheless. So I'm going to say that Sunday night, Peyton Manning will make him pay a price for his comments and his treatment of Peyton Manning.
Skip, I think the best way to go and the best way to really address this matter is to acknowledge publicly that most of us are probably wishing that Peyton Manning really gives it to him this Sunday evening. There is no question that you and I are diametrically opposed when it comes to the issue as it pertains to letting Peyton Manning go. You're thinking about Peyton Manning and what he's doing right now and what he could be doing for the next 5 years. I'm looking at Andrew Luck anywhere for the next 15 to 20 years, doing some of the things I think he's going to be capable of doing. I'm looking at long-term compared to short-term, and I'm saying I have no problem with Irsay going in that direction. Neither should the Indianapolis Colts, neither should the city of Indianapolis. That's just the way I look at it. Having said all of that, there is no question that Irsay's comments were beyond the pale, that they were a cheap shot. They were unethical, they were inappropriate, they weren't professional, and they clearly wasn't deserving for somebody like Peyton Manning with the class that he's been exhibiting. There's no doubt about that. And although I get where Irsay's coming from, because I think that when you look at Peyton Manning, #1 offense overall, #1 in points and yards allowed, #1 passing attack in the game, 22 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. I mean, this dude, what is he throwing for right now? 2,179 yards, completing 74% of his passes, a QBR of 90, a quarterback rating of 128. Peyton Manning is the clear runaway for league MVP right now as we speak. So Irsay's saying something about him that you believe could potentially distract him, get him emotionally enthralled in the situation to the point where it could detract or distract him from performing the way that he's been performing. I mean, if you tried to do something along those lines, I can't even say I blame you, to be honest with you. But at the same time, to sit there and bring up the fact that the man only has one Super Bowl, as factually accurate as it may be, I just think that John Fox, the coach of the Denver Broncos, was absolutely right when he talked about it being a cheap shot. If I'm Peyton Manning, I do not call this man back. I have to cultivate a relationship with the team that I'm on. I also have to be respectful and receptive to the fan base in Indianapolis. But I certainly don't owe Irsay anything. And as Tony Dungy highlighted and pointed out, you don't have that dome if it were not for Peyton Manning and what he delivered to the franchise. So, again, I think it was beyond the pale. I think it was wrong. I think it was inappropriate. I think that Peyton Manning's going to come out there and perform big time. If Irsay was doing this strictly to distract him and to kind of mess with his head, to mess with his performance, I would find it somewhat forgivable what he said. But it seems to be beyond that, considering what extent he went through yesterday to try to cover himself, and he did not do a good job of that at all, because I'm not buying what he said. I know you're not buying his explanation yesterday, and I don't think anybody is right now.
Now, wait a second. Does that mean that you're going to backtrack on your early week prediction that the Colts will beat the Broncos?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that but I will tell you, it does make it harder for me to be resolute in the pick that I made. I'm going to stick with my pick, but it makes it harder because, again, I'm looking at a football game. I'm looking at Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos coming into Indianapolis and just playing a football game. And then Irsay sits there and he does this to galvanize the Denver Broncos, because Peyton Manning right now, it's not just the way he's performing, it's the respect and the adulation his teammates have for him and his coach has for him. And to see the owner, his former owner, take such a cheap shot at him. God, football's an emotional game. And when you galvanize dudes and you get them even more motivated than they customarily are, that's a problem. And so coming into Indy, I hope the Indianapolis Colts are ready, because there is no doubt in my mind the Denver Broncos will be ready, because they were going to be ready anyway, but Irsay's got them even more hyped for this game, because now this is one of those do-it-for-Peyton Manning moments. We'll see how it pans out.
So if now the Broncos are galvanized by the owner's comments, and Peyton you're with me that he might be able to put up 40 points, doesn't the pressure and the onus fall back on the second-year quarterback who took Peyton's place to match Peyton touchdown for touchdown?
Well, it's not pressure, Skip. He has to perform. You're going up against Peyton Manning, you're going to have to perform. We haven't seen Tony Romo play the way he played until he went up against Peyton Manning. Why? Because it was required. Because you knew Dallas's defense wasn't going to be able to do much against the Denver Broncos. And that's why the Dallas Cowboys scored 48 points, because there was a level of focus and tenacity that was attached to their game, a level of urgency that they didn't have against anybody else, because you knew you could ill afford to make a mistake. Remember, the Denver Broncos didn't even punt that game. This is a similar situation. Andrew Luck is not Tony Romo, no doubt. I believe that in the end he'll be better, long term. But the bottom line is that he's going to have to step up and handle his business. It's a shame that his owner put him in this position, but at the same time, Andrew Luck doesn't have to play against Peyton Manning. He's got to play against that Denver Broncos defense. And I'm not sold on them. I'm sold on Peyton Manning. I'm sold on Julius and Demaryius Thomas. I'm sold on Eric Decker and Wes Welker and Noshawn Moreno. I'm not sold on Denver's defense, even with the addition of Von Miller coming back from his suspension. I'm not necessarily sold on that as of yet. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, so here's my final takeaway from all this. Big picture, in a weird way, I think Peyton owes Irsay a thank you, because let's just do the hypothetical. If Jim Irsay had just pledged blind allegiance to Peyton Manning 2 years ago and said, until death do us part, whatever you want, I want you to stay here until you don't want to play anymore, I'm not sure Peyton would have been quite as motivated, quite as challenged to show the world as he was when clearly Jim Irsay lovingly pushed him out the back door. That's what happened to me. And again, Peyton took the high road, but in the big picture, he did that. And then this week, even though you're saying it's a cheap shot, and I defended Jim on this yesterday, it's an accurate cheap shot because Peyton, by Peyton standards, has routinely come up small in the postseason.
Yeah, but
he's 9-11.
But Skip, let's stop that. Nobody's disputing its accuracy. You can clearly, Irsay has the facts on his side. But when we talk about class and decorum and professionalism and all of those things that we attach to our industry as well, there's certain things you just don't do. You know, you sat there, we were on Larry King together, and we were joking around about how you and I had a disagreement. But we work every day like brothers, man. This is what we do. You don't sit there and walk off the set and talk about each other like dogs. You don't do something like that. That's unprofessional. It's insensitive. It's childish. And there's no place for it. Now, if we know this, Irsay should know this. And by the way, I'm not accusing him of anything. But let's just say when I saw his interview yesterday, I'm talking about Jim Irsay here.
I know what you're
He
doing.
didn't look like he had all his faculties in order. He didn't look like a stable dude. I'll just leave it at that. I'm not accusing him of anything, Skip. But listen, I'm allowed to sit there and say, last time I checked, I got 20/20 vision. I might need reading glasses from time to time. I'm looking at the computer all the time.
Yeah.
But my eyes are pretty damn good. And what I saw yesterday was a grown man who's an owner of an NFL franchise that just looked to be bumbling and stumbling all over the place. Why? I don't know. No accusations here. But he didn't look too stable, like his equilibrium was in place. I'm going to leave it at that.
I don't know about that. He didn't look good. I will give you that much. So, okay, so again, my final takeaway is if Peyton and company do go on to win this year's Super Bowl, you know what I think would be funny and appropriate? I think John Elway should send Jim Irsay a Super Bowl ring.
Oh, that's nice.
Because I think he helped in some ways, even this week, remotivate, reignite, light a bonfire under Peyton Manning.
Skip, Kerry, I'll go a step further.
Okay.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the Indianapolis Colts won this Sunday and then met Denver in Denver for the AFC Championship game, and that's the game that Peyton Manning ruins Irsay's season.
Steve, I like the idea of Skip